Oh, the distances we'll travel for a cup of the good stuff. Welcome to Mojo Travels, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 coffee countries in the world. Are you a fan of our videos? Be sure to subscribe to Mojo Travels and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. For this list, we're looking at various destinations around the world that are known for their coffee. Whether due to the quality of the beans they grow, their coffee culture, or a distinctive style of preparation, these countries are a must-visit for anyone with a passion for the perfect cup of coffee. 2021 will be delicious. Number 10. Japan. Sake, anime, sushi, kawaii culture, hot springs, poetry, cherry blossoms. There are many things that Japan is known for. But when it comes to hot caffeinated beverages, most people would probably say tea before they thought to associate this island nation with coffee. Well, you'd be surprised. Japan has slowly but surely, and somewhat quietly developed one of the most distinct modern coffee cultures. The country is quickly rising in terms of coffee consumption per capita and total imports. It's also home to some of the world's top-ranked baristas. First introduced to Japan by Dutch and Portuguese traders centuries ago, coffee now plays a multifaceted role in local society. Japanese coffee equipment is a status symbol, coffee shops are social hubs, tradition reigns supreme at old-school kisaten coffee houses, and there's a real eye for detail across the board. Number 9. Turkey. For a cup of coffee unlike any other, head to Turkey. Here, they brew it extra strong, thick, and leave it unfiltered. Dairy isn't generally a part of the experience, but sugar is added during the brewing process. Translation: the sweetness of your coffee is dictated by the person who makes it, rather than personal tastes. Of course, there are still plenty of people who take it unsweetened. As for the fine coffee grounds that make it into your cup, you're actually supposed to stir regularly in order to maximize the flavor. An approach that means you will actually drink a fair amount of coffee grounds in the process. For people who are particular about their coffee, this might sound like an unwelcome departure from your usual brew, but Turkish coffee is a real cultural experience, and one that every coffee lover owes it to themselves to give a proper try. Number 8. France. This Western European country has certainly left its mark on coffee, and coffee on it. There are few experiences more quintessentially Parisian than sitting outside of a cafe and sipping on a coffee as you watch the world go by. It first made its way to the country in the mid-17th century, and before long, the country's now iconic cafe culture was born. There were already 600 such establishments by the time of King Louis XV. Once armed with these magical little beans, the French made numerous contributions to the world of coffee, including the first percolator and an early patent on what would become the French press, later made a reality by Italian inventors. They've also given us such preparations as the noisette, and popularized the café au lait. Today, it continues to be a nation with a deep love of coffee in all its forms. Number 7. Tanzania. For a truly mind-blowing sip of locally produced coffee, there are a few destinations more rewarding than this East African nation. Coffee is by no means its most prominent crop, with sugar, cotton, cashews, and tobacco all being produced in substantially larger quantities annually. But that slightly more modest total output is part of the appeal. On a coffee-centric trip to Tanzania, you can purchase beans directly from farmers at local markets and arrange a visit to reputable plantations. There's a real care and attention to detail that goes into coffee in Tanzania, and that applies equally to all steps of production, from farming to roasting and brewing. Some would go so far as to call it an art form. Coffee is very much ingrained in everyday life. Rather than major corporate-owned plantations, nearly 500,000 local farms are responsible for 90% of the country's coffee production. That makes Tanzania one of the best and most rewarding places for coffee tourism. Number 6. Vietnam. Like Turkey, Vietnam does coffee in its own distinct way. Introduced to the Vietnamese by French colonists in 1857, by the early 20th century it had already become a major cash crop. While Vietnam is second in the world in terms of coffee production, it's the role that coffee has taken on within the country's own borders that's most compelling. Following its introduction, various factors including war and local tastes saw the rise of some unique methods of preparation. For starters, Vietnamese coffee is traditionally brewed in single-serving drip brewing filters, and rather than fresh milk or cream, the coffee is whitened and sweetened with condensed milk. Iced coffee is also extremely popular, as is another variation that sees an egg whipped into it. So, whether it's for a taste of locally grown beans or a unique preparation, Vietnam is sure to satisfy. Number 5. Italy. Like France, Italy is a coffee lover's country. After all, where would we be as a world that runs on coffee without espresso? We shudder to think how Italy might come to a screeching halt if espresso beans were to suddenly become unavailable. But in Italy, not only are you hard-pressed to find a bad cup of coffee, but you're also spoiled for choice in terms of preparation and serving style. In addition to espresso, you've also got cappuccino, macchiato, caffè d'orzo, all of them with a delightful Italian ring to them. You can even get something not dissimilar in taste to drip coffee should you prefer that, in the form of the quaintly named Americano. Now, while great coffee can be found all across the country, Milan is without a doubt the epicenter of the Italian coffee world. This is a culture that prides themselves on their brew, and that shines through in every sip. Number 4. Australia. Many people feel that, at least as far as contemporary coffee culture goes, the United States is on the cutting edge. While overall the US consumes cheap coffee by the gallon, cities like Seattle, San Francisco, Portland, and New York City all pride themselves on the quality of their brew. Standouts though they might be, Australia's coffee capital, Melbourne, truly elevates its entire country as a whole. And depending on who you ask, when it comes to contemporary coffee trends, Melbourne may just be the coffee capital of the world. Cafes and coffee shops like Kettle Black, Top Paddock, and Higher Ground are world-renowned for good reason. Artisanal and independent coffee is so widespread in Australia, yes, even outside of Melbourne, that the only brew you'll be hard-pressed to find is one from a major international chain. Number 3. Finland. You might be surprised to see this Nordic country crack the top 3 and take a place on the podium. True, its coffee culture doesn't have quite the same international renown as, say, Australia or the United States, nor does its history with coffee reach as far back as that of Italy or France. As for growing coffee, they certainly don't. But the people of Finland arguably love their coffee more than any other nation on Earth, and they prove it by consuming record quantities per capita. The Finnish people put away an average of 26.5 pounds of coffee per person annually. That's roughly 10 cups a day. How they sleep, we have no idea, but they've certainly figured out how to brew a great pot. Coffee culture is omnipresent, especially in major cities like Helsinki. Best of all, most of the chains are domestic, and independent cafes are commonplace. Number 2. Brazil. Finland might top the charts in terms of consumption, but Brazil is in a league of its own when it comes to coffee production. The country collectively puts out a staggering 5.7 billion pounds of coffee per year. To put that figure in context, it represents roughly 1/3 of the world's coffee. Furthermore, top coffee producing nation is a title that Brazil has held for the last century and a half. So yeah, it's safe to say that coffee runs in the country's veins. Of course, quantity isn't everything. And one of the most appealing things about taking a trip to Brazil, at least for coffee lovers, is the ample opportunity to taste farm-to-cup brews that will give you a real appreciation of where your coffee comes from. Just watch out, Brazilians take their coffee even hotter than most. Number 1. Ethiopia. In terms of coffee production, this African nation comes in at 5th place, with close to 850 million pounds per year. But ask any reputable coffee expert or industry insider, and they'll tell you that Ethiopia's beans are pretty much without equal. Because of the country's high altitude and coffee-friendly weather, its farmers are able to produce beans of unparalleled quality. And because there's so much genetic diversity in terms of the different types of coffee in Ethiopia, the variety is similarly impressive. Then there's the fact that coffee is thought to have been first discovered and consumed in Ethiopia. Legend has it that a local goat herder discovered it in roughly 850 CE. Today, the crop represents 60% of the country's foreign income. All that to say, coffee reigns supreme in Ethiopia, making it something of a mecca for coffee lovers. Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from Mojo Travels, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.